I haven't really thought what I'm going to say about it yet, mind. But I'm turning the camera on to say things. But as yet, I haven't thought what to say. I'm supposed to be talking about my career, and I'm very enthused about talking about that. What happened? I left school after doing A-levels in 1982 and didn't really have much of an idea as to what I wanted to do. So I went to see a careers advisor, and they recommended or put me forward for a role at Sun Life in Bristol. I was living in Bath at the time with my mum and stepfather. So I had the interview, went to Marlborough House, there's Marlborough House, isn't it, in Bristol, and had the interview, and to be honest, I didn't think it went particularly well, and lo and behold, I was surprised to find that I actually got a job. So that was good, because up till then it was looking like I was be working in Gateway then? Gateway, or Key Markets, whichever it was then. Because that's all I was doing up till then, during the school holidays. So I got the job at Sun Life. My mother invested some money in a new jacket and pair of trousers for me, which is very generous of her. As soon as I got some money from the job, I made sure I bought new suits, because that's very nice of me, thanks. So I went to work for Sun Life in oh no, got that wrong, didn't I? Oh, see, I haven't planned this at all. 1982 I did my O-levels, A-levels in 84. So I started work in Sun Life in September 84, working in Unit Linked Policy Services. It's called that at some point, ULPS. And I worked on things like working out surrender values, switches, chargeable gain. Chargeable gains is a good thing. We used to get overtime to do chargeable gains. You had to work out how much gain a policy made over a year, and then write out a chargeable event certificate on sort of carbon paper. And there was always a backlog on those. So you could do some overtime, and if you get your order in early enough, I think it's about 10 o'clock, 10:30, you could get a couple of free rolls to eat while you're doing your overtime. So I'm just thinking of something. So I did that for 3 years until 1987. And then this new company, Merchant Investors / MI Group, started up. There were changes in the life insurance industry at the time, brought about by government legislation, if I remember rightly. And so I think you either had to be a tied agent, or you had to be a completely independent financial advisor. And so there's lots of agents at the time who weren't quite fully independent, but also weren't tied, had to make decisions as to what they wanted to do. And this Porchester Group agents decided they would become effectively tied agents to this new, as part of this MI Group, using a small life company called Merchant Investors as the way of doing it. And so they started up an office in Bristol. I'm not sure if they had Croydon at the same time, I guess. And I decided to move from Sun Life to Merchant Invest because I decided, there's two reasons. One was I thought I'd progress faster through a company which was going to grow quickly, and also I was at the embarrassment of trying to disguise my weak leg, so it would have been an opportunity to stop doing that and just try and live normally. That's another story. So I went to work for Merchant Investors in 1987. Mel Bone, who worked in Sun Life, had already moved across to Merchant Investors, so I think he helped get me the job. And I think I was going to work for him. I think initially, but then he was moved out of the role, and Karen Bishop, as she was then, I think her name was in charge of me. I worked in a department called Contribution Collection, which basically was, I thought working in Sun Life was reasonably dull, but Contribution Collection was even duller. It's things like setting up direct debits, bouncing checks, indemnity claims, direct debit mandate changes. It's all really exciting stuff. And for a brief period I worked on, I can't remember what happened, but we weren't busy enough during the initial startup of the company or not, I can't remember. But I worked on the mortgage desk for a bit as well. A couple other people, a woman who can't remember who they are now. And then after about a year, an opportunity came up to work in, what was it called initially? It became LAD, Life Admin Development, but Nick Thomas was managing it. There was only about 5 of us to begin with, I think. Myself and Matt James moved into LAD. And I started doing testing of software that had been delivered to us by Total Systems? We didn't have an IT department at the time. We had Nick and Julie Aston and Steve Harrington did business requirements, and then there's a software house in Bristol, Total Systems I think it was, who do the software development, analysis and development of the system, and then I would then do some testing. What was I going to say? Oh, they bought this. The system they used was a system from Premium Life. It's a very, 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 very basic system. Like I don't know how they cope with it, but if you were to do say a client search, you'd put in the name, say, and it would start searching from the first record to the last record. So if you had quite a few records, it would take a rather long time to find your matching client. The next one thing's first thing I worked on, client name search. You put an index in, so to find the details faster. So I worked in there, LAD, it grew and grew and grew, LAD, with the company. Eventually I did some business analysis work, and then there was a big change. There was all this, eventually got an IT department, and there was always some battles between the IT department and LAD, because we were part of effectively customer services, I suppose. And the IT department didn't really like us doing the analysis and testing. So eventually we merged into the IT department, carrying on doing basically the same sort of role, really. So I worked there on various different projects, conservation processing, big conversion because we had issues with overnight run times. It was projected that the overnight batch would take longer than the time we had, so we had to do big changes to make the system faster, introducing a concept of a policy pointer, just a number basically. So I've done that, doing the conversion. I was involved in mainly just testing it to make sure it worked, and it almost did. There was this one issue I remembered with suspense processing. They didn't extract all the records they needed to when they did the conversion to policy pointers, and so we spent a night just correcting it and testing it before the main conversion. So I left there in about 92, I think it was. NatWest Life had started up. I tried to get a job as a business analyst in there, but I was never really comfortable being a business analyst, to be honest. I tried to get jobs as a business analyst and didn't. Lots of other people who supposedly weren't as good as me ended up going to NatWest Life, but I wasn't selected. And then I tried again once Nick had been there for a bit, Nick Thomas, and got a job as test analyst in CAT. So in about 92, was it 93? Somewhere about then, I moved to NatWest Life, working in CAT, doing basically testing, using a testing tool called T-Plan. It wasn't very good. It's good from the point of view of structuring your testing, but it was a bit time consuming to say the least, and the software you used to actually put the test plans on was terrible. Took any pleasure out of the job really. So I did that for about 3 years, wasn't it? 3 years. But the last thing I worked on was another efficiency, making the system go faster project, I think. All I remember is using lots of toner, printing out printouts, because the system was terrible. Really was terrible. The system had, and that was life. I worked on the new system. They were going to use what they called a framework from Unisys called Unishore. Because they're already using Unisys' platform, if I remember rightly. So they're going to develop a new system based on the framework called Unishore. And essentially, if you analysed, I don't know how they came to the decision to use it in the first place, this Unishore system, but basically what you were doing as part of the project was just basically throwing it away and starting again. So you're buying something, this framework, and you say thanks for this framework, but the data model is not right. All the processes are very, very basic, because it's just a framework, it's just a concept. And so really it's just there just to give you an idea as to what you want to do. So eventually the project was cancelled. So I went back to working for CAT, and then they had some redundancies. I can remember going to a meeting with Nick Thomas, because I put myself forward because I fancied. I thought, let's see if I can get some redundancy. I think it's about 6 months pay, and then get another job. But in the end I decided it might be taking too much of a risk. So I went to see Nick Thomas to ask him what he thought about whether he wanted me to stay or not, and he said yes but looked away. So I thought, well, that's not a very good sign, is it? But I didn't take redundancy, and then just left under my own steam later on. I decided I was still going to leave because obviously they didn't want me. You don't say yes and look away from someone. And so I started working for Sherwood International in Gloucester, Quedgeley. Had an interview with Keith Noakes, which went well. And then I had about 3 months working in Kendal. I had hoped, working away from home, I might, start something off with someone. Escape from the ex, but didn't happen. The women working in Sherwood, sadly, left a lot to be desired. No offence. So I worked in Kendal for 3 months on site, learning the systems from the people who were handing over to us. They were splitting up, they'd been taken over by Scottish Provident, and the IT department wasn't coming with the split, so basically that's what we were employed to do. Take over running the systems, doing software development, analysis testing, all that sort of stuff. But it was quite fast going away the way they structured the bid, because we had the testers and analysts, us, me, in Gloucester, Quedgeley. The programmers were in Manchester. The hardware was in Belfast, and the database administrator was in Felton, Middlesex, and the big project manager was in Romford, Essex. So that wasn't really ideal, to be honest. So I went to Kendal for about 3 months to learn all this, staying Monday to Friday, and then we started doing work from Quedgeley going up to Kendal as and when required. I got a company car, which is nice. So I was there for about 2 years, no, for about 14 months, about 95 till end of December 95 to April 97. I spent with them 14 months, but that's how long it was. And the ex had the first kid, and so it didn't work out financially that she could stay home and I could still work for Sherwood. So I took the chance of going contracting. I got a job with NPI. Again, another example of an interview I went for with Di Williams, which I didn't really think that went that well, but somehow I still got a job. I used JSA. Didn't go through my own company. Was it my own company? Still my own company, yeah, but somehow it's more actively managed by JSA, if I remember rightly. Direction Software was my first company. So I was there for 3 years, and to be honest with you, the first about 2 years, it's just a waste of money, really. Good from my point of view to be earning it, but in terms of the benefit I was giving to NPI, I don't really think I was given that much benefit, to be honest. The first project was supposed to be working on quick wins, but the first thing I worked on took about a year, I think. Designing a system to produce annual statements. I think it was annual statements. It would have been better for them to have waited until they had a better Microsoft software, but we used the mainframe to do it. Initially it had an IBM DB2 database, so that was better than what I was used to working for the other companies, so having a proper database. But it wasn't the most effective way of producing the solution. But I did check the project manager, Di Williams. He said, "Yeah, carry on." So, okay, fair enough, I'll carry on. So I did that for about a year, and then they demutualised. So at last, I worked on something which actually you know, it was a worthwhile project from the point of view of doing something that actually needs to be done, and it's done pretty quickly as well. Unfortunately, it did mean the demise of MPI, but there you go. So I worked there until I had the issue with thinking I was being spied on. So that was about October 2000. And also I'd been contacted by Sean Glass at MI prior to that, and he was asking if I wanted to go back to work for MI because they were doing another conversion as well from the system I'd been working on, Myla, to an Oracle-based system. I just thought it was a bit fishy. Didn't seem right. I thought there's a catch with going back there, and so I resisted, and so I packed in it. But then I packed in at MPI because of worries about being spied on. I had a bit of a mini breakdown, but Sean was still keen to go to work, back to work for MI. He came round to the house after I left MPI. So in about mid-October, I think it was, I went to work for MI, and my suspicions were right, really. Wasn't very good there. And just after Christmas, January the 4th, I think it was, I had that dodgy coffee, and then walked out there as well. So that was the end of that brief return to MI. Then I had a break from work for 7 months and got a job at Sun Life Financial Canada. I wasn't really that keen to take it, but because the pay was rubbish. They sort of gave me I did ask if it would be increased after I'd been there for a while, because I'd have the expense of living. I was pleased to be living away from home, away from the ex, but it did mean there'd be some extra expense having to stay in B&B. So I started there mid-July. I had a phone call. I was up in Blackpool. Funny enough, I was gone there. I doubled up. I'd won an auction for a trip on the big one, Blackpool. So I doubled it up with going to the Open for a day. I had one night in Blackpool. And as I was driving home, I had a phone call from an agent saying, "Will you take this job in Basingstoke, Sun Life Financial Canada, as a test analyst?" So I agreed. Sent the fax from the service station on the way back home, I think, if I remember rightly. So I went to Sun Life Financial Canada. It wasn't a proper contract job. It was effectively a temporary permanent contract. So the money was very good, especially say staying away from home. But I was keen to get back to work, and I was particularly keen to get away from the ex, so I decided to take it. So I worked there until about October, then another breakdown. I reckon they put some anxious stuff in my tea or something, coffee, and I had to have a break. And then, so I went back and stayed with the ex for a bit, daytime as well as just weekends. And so eventually then I left on Halloween Day in October 2001, and ended up going then to Plymouth by train and going back and staying with my father. And Sue Linthwaite and Anne Taylor came to see me in St George to get me to go back to Basingstoke to work. So I thought, okay then. So I went back after Christmas. I think it was after Christmas. I went back, and once I'd gone back, they didn't do anything about my pay, so I was still on the same rubbish money and so I couldn't really see any benefit of working there, to be honest. So I resigned in February 2002. February 14th, was it 14th? Right about that time anyway. I resigned and went back and stayed in St George. Because wasn't enjoying staying away every night on my own in B&Bs. Because there was no real social life when I was there. So I wasn't enjoying it. It wasn't making me this time working there enjoyable, so I decided to resign. So I resigned there in 2002, and then I didn't work again until 2005. November 2005. I'd been sectioned again in 2004, which is very nice of them. And then after that, it took me another 18 months-ish to get a job working for Potential in Reading. And I stayed there for 9 months. It was a 3 months initial contract and then 6 months extended. And towards the end of the other 6 months, I was running. In fact, I finished early because I ran out of work for me to do. I was too fast. Working on conversions of lots of little systems from one database to another database. And it's quite a good project. I quite enjoyed working on it because it's quite a challenge, because there was very little documentation on the existing systems. So all I could do was just have a play around with the existing systems to find out what they did. They weren't particularly complicated, complex. So I'd muck around with the existing systems to find out what they did, and obviously speak to other people as well to find out what they thought they did and what they still used and didn't use, because quite a few of them, lots of the functionality wasn't used anymore. I forget the names of the project. I remember there were 2 Kathmandu systems for different areas of the business. Effectively the same system, but 2 different databases used by different parts of the business. And so I just had to test. So it was at least for testing, you do something on the new system, the old system database, see what the results were, and then you do the same on the new system and make sure you got the same results. So it was parallel testing, and everything went well apart from one. There was one particular one report being a problem with once it went into production. I think I tested it the wrong way. I can't remember exactly what happened now, but other than that, I think it went reasonably well. Project. There was no work for me after the 6 months. I moved to Reading after the first 3 months. Once I got the renewal, I was staying initially for the first 3 months. I stayed in a B&B for a short period, and then I found a house share. I was sharing with a German family. They practically rented all their house out. They had me downstairs in what used to be the front room, and a loft conversion as well, rented out. So I did that for about 2 months, and then rented the house in Russell Street for 6 months. And so when the 6 months was up and nothing else lined up, I had a look around, and all that came up was a job in Dublin. I didn't really want to go to Dublin, to be honest, but nothing else came up, so I went to Dublin, working for Delphi. They were placing people with Hibernian in Dawson Street in Dublin to begin with, until we moved to a bigger office, bigger, nice, swanky office off Harcourt Street, I think it was. And I was involved in testing a group pensions internet system. Initially reviewing the business requirements, or use cases as they called them, I think, and writing test scripts from that. Most of my time was spent asking lots of questions about the use cases, because they were holier than Swiss cheese. And I just about did some execution and the delivery system was terrible. I think deliberately terrible. Mickey taking terrible. And then towards the end, they started giving me non-jobs. I was making it clear they didn't want me to stay. Of course, the funny thing was they made it clear they didn't want me to stay, but then said, do you want to stay until the end of August? It extended me by another couple of months, even though they're giving me jobs, which made it clear they don't want me to stay. It's a bit a strange way of doing things, but there you go. And then they gave me I did they might extend me even further, but then I had a meeting with a bloke in the foyer, probably a more appropriate word, and he said, no, we don't need any longer. But fair enough. And then, of course, I had the punch up in Kilmainham jail. So I was going to leave, I think, mid-August, and then I had the punch up in Kilmainham jail on the 26th of July. So I didn't look particularly good. I wasn't really in frame of mind for work, and I had a feeling that work was involved in it anyway. So I just went back to work, picked my stuff up with my nose and my black eye, and finished. There's much point sticking around another couple of weeks. So that was the end of my IT career. About the end of July 2007. And that's it. Nothing else to say. Goodbye.